What's up, guys, and welcome back to my channel. I recently rebranded because it's no longer me and my little brother's channel. It's just mine because he didn't like reading the stories. So today I will be telling 6 unsolved missing persons mysteries. So let's jump right into these stories. Lars went to Bulgaria with friends. He got in a fight and was injured, so he couldn't fly back when his friends did. Lars called his mom once they had all left, saying he thought he was being followed and he was going to book a plane the next day. He was last seen on CCTV footage heading into the airport carrying his suitcase, and then the next thing, he was running out of the airport at full speed without his bags. He was never seen again. Brandon ran out of gas on the highway in the middle of the night and called his brother to come help him. Shortly after, he called 911 and reported that someone had chased him into the woods and that he needed police. Eventually, his brother and one police officer arrive at the scene and find his truck abandoned, but no sign of Brandon. Brandon calls his brother and says he's bleeding and is 10 minutes away from his truck. That was the last anyone ever heard from him, and searches of the area turned up empty. On September 20th, 1988, in Belen, New Mexico, she went for her daily bike ride and never came back. Her mom actually used to accompany her on these rides, but stopped because she felt like she was being stalked by a driver. She tried to get Tara to carry Mace, but Tara refused. That day, her mom set out to look for her along the trail and didn't find her, but she did find pieces of her Walkman and a cassette tape. Several people saw Tara riding her bike, which has never been found, but no one witnessed her abduction, although they did see a light-colored pickup truck following her. On June 15th, 1989, a Polaroid photo of a young woman and a boy bound and gagged was found in a convenience store parking lot in Florida. The photo was thought to have been taken after May 1989 because the type of film was not available till then. Tara's mom thought the woman in the photo was Tara, given a similar scar on her leg from a car accident. The boy was thought to be the missing Michael Henley, also of New Mexico, but that later proved to be untrue, as Henley's remains were later found in the forest a few miles from a campsite from which he had disappeared in 1990. More photographs have surfaced of a female bound and gagged, but they haven't been released to the public. The female in the photos has been suspected to be Tara, but the boy remains unidentified. In the 90s, a girl by the name of Heather Teague was sunbathing on the Kentucky side of the Ohio River near Evansville, Indiana. A witness was watching from across the river through his telescope, which is really creepy in itself. Anyway, when out of the woods behind her, a man walked up, grabbed her by the hair, and dragged her back to the woods. To this day, no one knows what happened to her or who took her. "21 years ago, in the early hours of New Year's Day, 1998, two partygoers, Ben Smart, 21, and Olivia Hope, 17, disappeared in mysterious circumstances in the Marlborough Sands, New Zealand. They had been traveling home via water taxi when they went missing, and they haven't been heard from since. Police charged a man, Scott Watson, with their murder, but he has always maintained his innocence, and the bodies were never found. In 1945, a Christmas Eve fire destroyed a home in Fayetteville, West Virginia. George and Jeannie Sauter lived in that home with 9 of their 10 children. Their oldest son, Joe, was overseas fighting in World War II. That night, George and Jeannie Sauter were able to escape the burning house with 4 of their children. The remaining 5 Sutter children were never accounted for. At 12:30 a.m. on Christmas, Jeannie Sutter woke up to the phone ringing. She answered the phone, and a woman whose voice she didn't recognize asked for a name Jeannie was also not familiar with. She heard other voices in the background, along with clinking glasses and weird laughter. When Jeannie got off the phone, she checked on her children. She had allowed her children to stay up later playing with new toys. She noticed that lights were on and the curtains were closed, typically done by the last person in the house to go to bed. She found one child asleep on the couch and returned her to bed, assuming the other children were in the attic and had forgotten to close down the house. At 1 a.m. on Christmas, Jeannie Sutter woke up again to the sound of an object hitting the house's roof with a loud bang, then a rolling noise. She went back to sleep. At 1:30 a.m. on Christmas, Jeannie Sutter woke up again, this time to the smell of smoke. She got up and found a fire in George's office, also where the fuse box and telephone wires were. Jeannie woke up George, and they escaped the house with 4 children. The family yelled at the house, assuming they would wake the other children who slept in the attic. These were the children who had stayed up later than the rest of the family, and Jeannie had assumed went to bed without shutting the lights off. They did not hear from the other children and could not go upstairs to get them because the staircase was aflame. Next, the family tried to call for help. The Sutter phone did not work, so one of the children ran to the neighbors and called. The family tried to locate their ladder in order to check on the children in the attic. It was usually resting against the side of the house, but was now missing. George Sutter tried to use both of his trucks to drive closer to the house so that he could crawl up to the attic. Both were previously in good working order and now would not start. Because of these various delays, and because the fire department was small and volunteer only, most of the firefighters were overseas serving in the war. They did not arrive until morning, when the family assumed the other 5 children had already died. When the fire department finally did arrive and began going through the ashes of the Sutter house, they did not find any bones. The fire chief still believed the children died in the fire. 4 days after the fire, George Sutter bulldozed the home, intending to make a memorial garden for his deceased children. Death certificates for the children were issued. However, after things calmed down, the family began to question what really happened. The family's Christmas lights stayed on through the beginning part of the blaze. This would not have occurred if it was truly an electrical fire. They found the family ladder had been moved from the side of the house and hidden in an embankment near the home. Someone from the telephone company discovered that someone had crawled up a telephone pole and cut the phone line leading to the Sutter's house. While sorting through the rubble, Jeannie Sutter said that they found kitchen appliances intact. How could the fire not damage them more if it had truly burned human bones to ash? Jeannie Sutter tried to burn animal bones to ash and was unable to do so. She contacted a crematorium, who told her a 2-hour fire at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, both hotter and longer than the Sutter's house fire, would still leave human bones intact. George Sutter was confused about why neither of his previously working trucks wouldn't move that night. A local bus driver provided an alternate account. The driver of a bus that passed through Fayetteville late Christmas Eve said he had seen some people throwing balls of fire at the house. A few months later, when the snow had melted, Sylvia found a small, hard, dark green rubber ball-like object in the bush nearby. George, recalling his wife's account of a loud thump on the roof before the fire, said it looked like a pineapple ball hand grenade or some other device used in combat. The family later claimed that, contrary to the fire marshal's conclusion, The fire had started on the roof, although there was by then no way to prove it. People in the town claim they saw the missing children in a vehicle the night of the fire, or have seen them since. In 1949, the site of the house fire was excavated. Human vertebrae bones were found, but an expert said they could only come from a human aged 16 to 23 and had never been exposed to fire. The oldest of the missing children was 14 at the time of the fire. The expert also noted that it was very strange that more bones weren't found, as they should not have burned up in that situation. Another sighting: a woman who ran a Charleston hotel claimed to have seen the children approximately a week afterwards. "I do not remember the exact date," she said in a statement. The children had come in around midnight with 2 men and 2 women, all of whom appeared to her to be Italian. When she attempted to speak with the children, one of the men looked at her in a hostile manner. He turned around and began talking rapidly in Italian. Immediately the whole party stopped talking to her. 2 months before the fire, in October 1945, a traveling life insurance salesman tried to sell George Sauter a policy. When Sauter declined, the salesman told him his house would go up in smoke and your children are going to be destroyed. Rather than the loss of business, the salesman told Sauter the cause of this tragedy would be the dirty remarks you have been making about Mussolini. The month of the fire, December 1945, some of the Sauter children noticed 2 people in a car that would watch them on their way home from school. The family, along with some other town resident, believed the Sicilian mafia may have taken the children and started the fire in an attempt to extort money from the Sauters, though no one has reached out to them to ask for money. Sauters believed for the rest of their lives that the 5 missing children survived. Sadly, these stories are only a few stories on a very long list of missing person cases that have been investigated, put aside, and lost in a sea of files and cases. But for the parents, spouses, children, and siblings of these missing persons, they will never be able to put it aside, never be able to forget and move on, forever caught in a cycle of memories and regrets. Something that will come to shape their lives. Some of these cases happened decades ago and some mere months old, but all are still open with the possibility, however small, of being solved. Those stories were pretty sad, with the families not knowing whether or not their family member that went missing is alive or not, or if they'll ever see them again or not. So just remember to be aware of your surroundings and stay safe. And don't forget to remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to get notified when I upload every Friday. See you next Friday.